Okay, hello everybody. This is AAMI News and Conversation, the show where we talk about what you need to know as an AAMI member and what's happening in our communities. I'm here today to talk to two very important people who are helping with the development of ST79. That's a standard that you probably know and love. But before we dive into that, let's start with introductions. These are the co-chairs of Working Group 40, the working group that's responsible for that document, and I'll let them tell us a little bit about themselves. So, Horlando, we can start with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Horlando Cintron, and I'm manager of perioperative support services and central processing for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I've been in healthcare for 27 years, advancing patient safety um, through infection prevention, education, and standard development. Very happy to be with you and honored to be part of this group and selected as co-chair. So thank you.
It's a very impressive and important group, and as part of that, Marianne, I feel like introductions aren't needed, but please let us know who you are.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. My name is Drosnock, and I'm the head of clinical affairs at Healthmark, which is a Getinge company. Within this role, I lead a team of clinical educators responsible for standards development and external customer-facing training. I have been involved in the standards development process since 2009, most notably leading Working Group 84, which is the endoscope processing document, and led that group through the first and second version of the publishing of ST91, which is our national standard in endoscope processing. I, like Orlando, am excited to be here today and excited at, or maybe a little scared at the responsibility of leading Working Group 40 for the steam sterilization document of ST79.
Marianne, I love that you started with the little preamble about ST91. We're talking about a standard there that really is narrowed down on one specific device and specific processes around that device. And now you've almost doing a full 180. We're going to be talking about a standard that has such a wide scope. This ST79 Comprehensive Guide to Steam Sterilization and Sterility Assurance in Healthcare Facilities, which when I hear that title, that sounds like everything, the whole sterile processing process. So I guess for both of you, Orlando and Marianne, just give me an elevator pitch. What does this document not touch on? That's what I think a lot of people will want to hear is what does it not talk about? And that will tell us the other side of it.
Honestly, I don't know what it doesn't talk about. You've really hit the nail on the head that this is so all encompassing. I mean, it talks about everything from our point of use treatment immediately after the procedure back through reuse and every aspect there in between that touches sterile processing. It's a guide that serves our sterile processing professionals, managers, infection preventionists, engineers through every stage: cleaning, packaging, sterilization, storage, you name it. So I mean, this really is, as it says, comprehensive, but it's a book already, and I can only see that it'll get more detailed with time. So Orlando, what do you think about that?
I think you're spot on, Marianne and Brian. Just to answer, I think where we don't cover is chemical sterilants, right? With the recent development of ST58, chemical sterilants in healthcare practices, which is a standard that I led alongside ALPA a few months ago when we finally got the standard approved. And so,
We're talking about
we're not talking about ethylene oxide and we're not talking about low level sterilization. We are strictly talking about steam sterilization in healthcare practices.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you.
and most of our viewers probably know like what steam sterilization is. It's the most commonly used in reprocessing facilities. And I'm just curious for my layman side of things, why is that? Why is steam sterilization the go-to?
Well, I can start with that. I'd like to think that, as you said, most people would understand this, but for a very basic level, steam sterilization is still the recommended modality to achieve sterilization on medical devices that are compatible with it. So they have to be able to withstand steam sterilization because it is a high temperature and high pressure process. But it's very robust and it gives us a good assuredness of sterilization being reached. So again, with it being such a robust process and right, it's water under pressure basically. So we're not using other chemicals. It's not as costly in a lot of aspects. So I think it's well studied. There's a lot of reasons why, but it is the go-to and still the most common and widely recommended method if the medical device can withstand that.
Mm. The last time that this document was revised was 2022. So in my mind, that's not too long ago for a standards document. But at the same time, considering the gamut that we're talking about here, 250-page standard, where it's everything and anything, as you were talking about, Marianne. I'm curious, are you now looking at a very extensive revision this time around? What is driving this revision?
Well, I'll start out on that one too. So the actual version of the last edition of 79 is 2017. And then the group got back together and issued some amendments, some
Mhm.
additional statements. I believe there were 4 of them, and that was in 2022. So 2017 is the last time the document has had a full overhaul. And I believe we envision that that's exactly what this next version will be. There have been a lot of changes in the field, new best practices, many more peer-reviewed journal articles have come out related to the science of sterilization. So we do envision it as an update of the entire thing. Orlando, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So going back to it, I think, is long overdue. Marianne eloquently stated 2017. The revisions were addendums that were added because we may have realized that biological monitoring wasn't included in it, was somehow left out, environmental cleaning. And so the addendum really included 4 specific areas. But when you think of technology advancements, you think of instrumentation, you think of compliance, regulations that have changed and has grown so much. I think, when we look at this, you think of product monitoring, testing, and quality has advanced so much since 2017 that these are areas that really can use some serious revision. We just put out a TIR on transportation, and transportation was somewhat included here, but not as in depth as we need now. And now that we see so many offsite facilities in the work, we really understand that there's a lot happening in the sterile processing arena. Healthcare has increased so much for frontline users, and space and availability is not there. And we're really looking for guidance from the standards group and this expert group to help drive that revision in a timely manner, because I think timeliness is the other thing that we really want to focus on when we start this revision.
You're
Well,
absolutely right, Orlando. And I want to add one more thing, if you don't mind, and
no,
that's
no.
because this is 79 is an older edition now. We really do need to harmonize with standards that have been released since then. So with ST91, with 58, all of them, so they already provide greater clarity in a lot of areas that historically have led to findings by surveyors, and there've been challenges interpretation wise. So I think it's important to think of that in light of updating the document is we really do need to harmonize with other standards that have already been out for a while.
Now
Great
that's
point.
that's interesting because you're talking about this ecosystem of standards that seem to all be influencing each other. And it's not every day that I hear because these other standards changed, now our standard is seeing some change. But this is one of those documents that's, I'm assuming, referencing quite a lot of other things. Like Orlando, you mentioned ST109, the transportation document that's brand new.
Right.
Are there other documents that are influencing this? Marianne, you mentioned 91. Anything else that people should be aware of right away?
Well, like Orlando said, ST58 is new, so I think that's an important one. We have TIR 99 for probes and dilators. I think that's
Absolutely.
another newer one. And so harmonization is really important in looking at these as a holistic set of standards, because as you said, Brian, early on, 91 is for flexible and semi-rigid scopes. It's got a narrow scope to it, whereas 79 calls for or carries over to everything in the sterile processing arena, and a lot of times your scopes are done in sterile processing, so we want to make sure what we're saying in one document makes sense and is harmonized with the others.
That's awesome. Yeah, if I'm somebody who is, let's say I lead a sterile processing department, is ST79 my Bible? Is that the point where we start it all and then we start looking at other documents we need to plug in as needed? Or please describe the ecosystem to me here.
All right, so I'll definitely take that on,
You start now.
Brian. ST79 has been the Bible for SPD for many, many years, and largely due to the fact that ethylene oxide, which was the only competitor way back when, before low temp sterilization came involved, we really had steam sterilization that drove the volume within healthcare that we're able to do in a timely manner. And I think that, when it initially came out, absolutely the Bible. But we've also recognized the fact that technology has changed and driven. So while ST79 is somewhat the Bible because it really lays out the decontamination process and all the steps and the importance that is involved in not only making sure our patients are safe, but also our employees, right? The technicians who are on the front line who are managing it. Then you go into prep and pack, the assembly area, the inspection, the delicate and meticulous testing and requirements that technicians need to understand when they're coming into this field. And I got to add that, ST79 started the process for mandatory certification for technicians in the field. We recognize now that there's really only 2 to 3 states that are mandating certification. And through ST79 and standards, we can continue to reinforce the importance for mandatory certification in all of our states as we're looking at it, because this is an important area that really drives patient safety and reduces infections and save lives, if you will, right? From the back end of it, we are that heart and soul from the body that is really driving the healthcare institution. So ST79 is, it's definitely that Bible for us to set the mark, give the understanding and the knowledge needed so that healthcare institution could then seek the additional support that's out there to help them fall in line.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it sounds like now to continue with this narrative, you're off right to write the New Testament. So I'm curious for those who are want to be involved in that. How do we get on the ground floor? Who should be involved in this standards development process?
I can take a crack at that one. So I think it's so important at this time for a well-rounded group of people to be able to take on this updating of the document. So we have members of the committee that include sterile processing technicians, leaders, infection preventionists, manufacturers, regulators, educators. We even have the FDA and Joint Commission historically have been on these committees. So it's crucial that we have the variety of backgrounds and experience levels and of course our end users who give that crucial voice of the field, and keep us grounded, because we can say we have to do this, but they're the ones that tell us that that's not feasible. We could never do that. So it's crucial to have all of those points of view within the group. And so now is the time to get involved, because we've just started the process of opening this document. And Orlando and I have been working with AAMI staff to figure out how we want to do this. There should be a survey coming out, hopefully in the near future, to the current members of the working group to really get their feedback on how we should approach this. What are the most important areas of the document that we need to focus on first? And then we plan to work out or break into different subcommittees or task groups who will work on a section of the document and really give that a good overhaul. And we'll do that individually for the different sections before we come back together and have the whole working group look at it. It's just such a daunting task. As you said, it's how many pages long?
150.
I think we fear that if we just opened the whole thing up for comments, we would have thousands and thousands of comments and repetition of comments. And so it's daunting to really think about how to do this. And we want to do it right. But so again, now is the time for people to get involved from the ground floor and really have that impact to ensure that this guidance in the end is practical, but yet scientifically sound and feasible to implement in the daily life of the sterile processing technicians who have to follow this guidance document. So we're excited, but it's a good time to get in.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And for those who do want to get at the table, they just reach out to standards@aami.org and we will get you connected with the right folks.
I just want to add though,
go ahead.
Brian, before we go in, I think if you're in healthcare, if you're in sterile processing, if you're an educator or you're a leader in your institution and you want to be involved, you should absolutely get involved. There is opportunities now post-COVID that we are able to see new members, new voices, and new ideas that are fresh off the plate that can now join these meetings via Teams or Zoom, if you will. So don't be afraid. AAMI definitely has a great program in place for new attendees that are coming on board, new users, and I invite you to come on board and just take part of it and share your expertise, because you're the ones that we really want to be a part of it.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate that, sharing that. And I appreciate both of you joining me today to talk a little bit about this. It's a really exciting project. I know we're just getting started, so we want people to get in there on the ground floor. But I'm looking forward to hearing updates, and we'll talk about it more in the future. Thanks again to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right.